Hi, my name is Obi. Welcome to Clinically Unscripted podcast where we host industry leaders whose work sits in clinical trials. Today I'm joined by my friend, the CEO of Invisio, Flo. The work that Invisio is doing is quite essential in our industry because they are transforming how clinical operations is executed. Today we will dive into the future of decentralized clinical trials. Thank you for joining me, Flo.
Thank you, Obi, for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here.
Finally.
Finally. We tried for a long time to find
From 2025.
from 2025. We tried to find the right spot and the right time. And I think this is our opportunity to talk about clinical trials and hopefully the future of clinical trials.
Yeah, to be honest, I was quite excited and also motivated to meet you for the first time in Munich. When I learned about what Invisio has been doing in the industry, I was quite impressed, and that really triggered some moments that I would like you to share with our audience today. If you don't mind, we can start by finding out or learning what motivated you to start the company Invisio.
So I didn't start Invisio with a big vision or a big business plan. I started with €1,000 and the idea to make clinical trials better and faster.
With €1,000.
With €1,000. It was a big struggle in the beginning, of course. And we learned that clinical trials don't fail because of science. They fail because of poor execution. And sites were overwhelmed. Patients were waiting. Nobody was solving problems. And what really changed over time was my perspective on the clinical trials. In the beginning, I always thought we were helping trial sites. And today I know we are helping patients to get better treatment, to be part of clinical trials, and now the responsibility changed to a different level.
I can hear the motivation from the onset. However, you started the business with €1,000 and you need a motivation that is close to $1 million to start a business with €1,000. But over time, you've been working in Invisio, carrying the vision for some time now. How has that motivation evolved over time?
So at first, the motivation was a little bit to survive. So we did not have any backup plan. We did not have any VC money or any other outside money to fund our business. So we needed to grow. So my vision was survival, maybe at the beginning. Now we are supporting clinical trials in 27 European countries, 25 US states. We are working on Australia as our main new trial sites network in the future. And the vision now got a lot bigger. So we started with a few sites in Germany, just supporting them. Now, I don't even know how many sites we are currently supporting because it changes every day. So the vision now is to get more patients into clinical trials, to get them to get a better care, to get them to new medication, and to really help and make an impact.
Yeah, so I'm going to ask a question for the benefit of listeners that haven't heard about Invisio before. I know a lot about your company, but just for the benefit of people that don't know anything about your company, what exactly does Invisio do?
Invisio is supporting clinical trials with healthcare professionals. So we can be at nearly any point in the world or any place to support for a clinical trial. In a lot of cases, we are supporting directly on the clinical trial side because they might be missing personnel or they just might be missing a few people to support on a specific trial because it's maybe very complex or has a lot of visits. But in the past years, a lot of things changed. We had an epidemic and people stayed at home, and this is where trials changed a lot too. So now we are doing a lot of home care trials. So maybe if you set up a new study, you have 15 visits, you can do 5 visits at the trial sites and you can do 10 visits at the patient's home. So we can reduce the travel burden of the patient to go to the trial site. Maybe he's very sick and doesn't want to travel or just can't travel. So we can be at the patient's home, do a lot of trial visits at the patient's home and support. And we have the personnel to do that in nearly all European countries and the US.
It's very good that you have mentioned this particular scenario of helping reduce the travel burden for patients. To be honest, most of the times these patients are really sick and are quite dependent. And I see what your company is doing being a very big game changer, especially post-COVID. However, can you share a story or two of how your company has really impacted the life of the patient?
Yeah, I think one story that really stayed with me was a pediatric study. So we were approached by the sponsor. They had a patient in a pediatric trial, and it was a burden for the family and for the patient to travel to the trial site. Mm-hmm. And we were able to find a medical doctor who was willing to travel to the patient's home, do a lot of the trial visits at the patient's home, and so the patient could stay in the trial, and we could take this burden from the family traveling to the trial site, taking the siblings as well and the patient to the trial site for many, many visits. And with our dedicated healthcare professional, we were able to support the family and we were able to keep the study on track. And importantly, the child stayed in the study. So this is one story that really stuck with me, and I'm happy to share another one.
Yeah. Most times, like we were speaking off the camera and we referenced that every data point in a clinical trial is a representation of a human life. And that human life is also a representation of probably millions of people who are waiting on that therapy to go to market. So this is quite a good impact story example. But if you have one more, I can't say no.
Yeah, sometimes we really forget that behind every data point is a human life. I think this is a really strong thing we need to have in mind when we're working on clinical trials.
Yeah.
On another story, we were approached by a client and they needed a visit the same day. So we needed to set up a contract with the client, a contract with our nurse, get the nurse trained, get all the necessary information and equipment to the nurse, and then the nurse had to go to the patient's home to do the visit. And we were able to manage that in 6 hours. So we were approached the same day, 6 hours later, we were doing
already with the patient
trial visit at the patient's home. And I think this says a lot about how fast in execution we are and how we are willing to save every trial visit that's possible and take the burden off the patient.
This is really a great example of what decentralized trial should be all about. Decentralized trial should meet the patient, make sure that the patient is at the end of the day, not missing any visits. And also the most important thing is that the protocol, there's protocol compliance, there's high quality of the data that is coming in, and the patients are seeing the most qualified professionals at the end of the day. I'll share a funny story. Someone giving a speech, and she said one reason why one of their data points derailed was because each time they delivered the drug to the patient had to administer the drug to himself, but it was 23 kg. So they would drop it at the front, and the patient was too old to carry it, and he would leave it there. And by the time the son or the daughter comes back home and brings it in, it has already lost the potency. So that happened over time, and they realized that there could be a problem coming from that particular data point. But it was already too late.
Yeah, but in a lot of cases, you're not close enough to the patient to get these kind of stories and to see where clinical trials really fail. So everyone is thinking about protocols and protocol deviations and maybe AEs and SAEs, but then it's simply gets these problems with a delivery of a package. So we can share similar stories. So we come to a trial site and we were asking, okay, how's the trial going? Where should we start? And then we hear a story, okay, the only person that's trained on the tablet and how to use it, she left 6 months ago on maternity leave. We need someone who's trained on the tablet. But the sponsor didn't know that. We didn't know that. So we came in fully prepared to start, but nobody was trained on how to use the specific tablet for the trial site and for the trial. And nobody told the sponsor, okay, the one person that's trained is on maternity.
So I'm actually very glad that you mentioned training. On that occasion, the only person that was trained was on maternity leave.
Yeah.
However, for Invisio, how do you ensure that your healthcare professionals are well trained, onboarded, and well prepared to support any trials at any scale?
I think the biggest mistake people make is in training is not just about protocols. Of course it is, but it's about the whole responsibility of the study. So we operate across multiple countries, languages, and regulatory environments. And we focus on these three things. It's compliance, consistency, and accountability. Of course, all our nurses are trained on good clinical practice in the newest version, on IATA to ship everything where it needs to be in the right time, and also basic life support. So if anything happens at the patient's home, we are ready to act. In a lot of cases, there are extra trainings that come with the sponsor, including data protection, the protocol training on ECRFs. So we have all the trainings, but for the healthcare professionals, understanding the trial and understanding clearly that you're taking care of a patient and the patient safety and the data integrity is an important thing that's crucial to us.
Just a quick follow-up question on that. One of my guests, she highlighted that one of the challenges that they have realized from the sponsor side as regards training is that most times the sites are pressured to start the study, and the sponsors are not really focusing on if they have completed the training, if they are well equipped to carry on the protocol, not just to start, but to finish. From your perspective, do you think that the sponsors should give a little bit more time from when the final protocol is approved to FPI, for example? Like, do you think there's not enough time to train people? And when do you think is ideal time for training and onboarding before FPI?
I personally think there's enough time because I see where we are losing time. And this is not in training on protocols or first patient in.
This is the type of conversation I like to have. Let's click.
So the problem is way before that.
Oh,
it's
okay.
Negotiation of contracts. It's negotiation of data safety, data integrity. So we have stories where in Spain, all the contracts are ready. You can start immediately. So you have a trial ready in a few months. In Germany, we have maybe in a trial, we have 10 sites that are ready to go in 2 months. And then you have one site that wants to renegotiate the contract. It takes another 6 months. So you start 6 months late. And then we talk about, okay, how fast can we train on the protocol and when is first patient in? But we're already 6 months late and you're losing millions in negotiating contracts and timelines.
That's
and
data protection. Another good angle to look at it from. Because I recall she also talked about negotiation and contracting phase, but we didn't. I think from what she was trying to say also, contracting, the sites are not super involved in the contracting.
They are, but it's not the PI who's involved in the contracting. It's somewhere else in the system of the site. So it depends if it's a clinic in Germany or if it's a site in Poland or it's a site in Spain. So you have different regulatory problems to approach. And sometimes sites are like very well prepared. They have dedicated studied units. They have seen 100 protocols, 100 contracts, and they have their list like, okay, we need to have this and we want that. It's non-negotiable. Okay, then it's done in like 10 days. But other sites are like overwhelmed with their first protocol and the first contract they get. And then it takes a few weeks, and maybe the person that's really into these tri contracts is on vacation for another 2 weeks. And then we are talking about 4, 6, 7 weeks of delay in your trial before you even started with training or first patient in. So I think there's a lot of room to improve on getting contracts faster into the sites and getting sites really ready to start trials.
Thank you. I think I expect some conversations around, around this topic.
We can have a lot of conversations about this topic. And then we go back to payments. And then we go back to recruitment. And you have a lot of small struggles throughout a clinical trial. And you need to approach like all these small problems to get the whole trial done. And this is not only Europe or the US. It's globally, you have different problems.
I want to pick on the regulatory part of it. You are working with healthcare professionals, not just in Germany, across Europe, in a couple of states in the US. I reckon that for each location that you want to activate a healthcare professional, there are different regulations to documenting them, for example. So how do you ensure that there is unified verification process documentation to make sure the HCP that is heading to meet a patient is well qualified and can, work properly, considering the complexities of different regional regulations or regulatory requirements?
Europe is very complex. We have so many different regulations when it comes to data protection or document verification. Today, a lot of processes are still very manual. You still have a lot of paper that's fragmented, that's inefficient. We built an internal system to manage all our healthcare professionals, all the verifications, all the trainings, all the insurances they need to have. And it's still not seamless, but it's secure. We have a cross-border solution, but this is limited to Invisio and what we are doing. So it's not interconnected to other companies. It's not connected to other systems. This is still internal for us. We need a digital and trusted infrastructure in Europe that's a compliant verification over all countries. And we are missing that, but we still have so many other digital problems in Europe that I think a cross-platform to verification of nurses or nurse degrees, of doctorate degrees, this will take a few more years to come.
How are you currently doing it today, if you don't mind me asking?
It really depends on the country. Like in UK, you can check with the Nursery and Midwifery Board, and you can check if the license they gave you is able to be verified. In other countries, like in Germany, it's all on paper, and you have to trust this paper.
Tell me about Germany.
that it's real. The problem is if, for example, a nurse loses her verification, like to a fire or to water damage, it's really hard for them to get a new one issued.
Really?
To get a copy. They need to know where they did the first or initial IHK proof, and then they need to approach them, maybe have a number, a case number to get it back, and then they will get a new paper. So you will never get digital documentation. And we cannot verify this with any officials. So you get a paper, you need to trust it, you need to trust the stamp on it, you need to trust the signature, but we are not even able to call someone to get it verified. So this is an internal process of getting to know this person, see all the other certifications they have, get recommendations from other clinics they worked before, get recommendations from other trials or other sponsors they worked with.
So I see the extra step that Invisio is taking is actually saving a lot of time and maybe the risk of hiring the wrong person if the sponsors, for example, or CRO wants to go direct. I'm not sure many CROs are equipped to do this verification, this extra step that you're taking. And I should ask you, who would you primarily talk to as a business? Are you talking to CROs or sponsors, and how is that for you in the mix?
So in 90% of the cases, we are talking to the sponsors directly.
Okay.
Sometimes we are being approached by CROs because they are more into the project when it's already running. So maybe your project is running already for 12 months and then they approach us, okay, we have a lack of patients or we need home care support because the patients are not able to travel, but then your trial is already running for a few months. We get approached by the CRO and the CRO then recommends us to the sponsor. So we want to be in direct contract with the sponsor because we still need the CRO on our level to monitor all the work we are doing.
Yeah, understand. Do you have any therapeutic area preference where you see involving Invisio early, especially from the sponsor side, will save time, keep the quality expected of the trial, and also timeline is everything in clinical trials. Timeline is tied to money, right? So which therapeutic area do you see Invisio really, really giving the sponsor a lot of impact on that?
So we're not focused on any therapeutic area.
Okay.
We can do all of them and we're used to cover all of them. Of course, we have a lot of trials in oncology, dermatology. This is maybe like 70% of what Invisio is currently supporting. And it's very crucial for us to be approached by the sponsor as early as possible. So they can trust us. We have 15 years experience in clinical trials. We have seen hundreds of protocols. We have seen hundreds of thousands of protocol amendments that came after a few months and after a few realizations.
Of course.
we can help with site initiation visits. We can help with finding the right site for your trial because we have experience who's faster in signing documents, which PI is like really into trials and who's willing to work with us, and who knows Invisio and how we do our work, and we can really help and support the sponsor to get their trial faster. Yeah.
I'm glad you talked about the need for sponsors to speak to you or speak to Invisio early. I am sure that there are certain misconceptions about that. How much of these misconceptions have you heard, and how would you challenge those on this podcast?
We heard a lot of misconceptions, and I think the biggest one is that healthcare professionals are just an additional resource, and they are not. They are your strategic lever to make your trial better and faster. And sponsors often think of terms in just sites and not in terms of executions. But sites that do not have the capacity to fully support your trial, they will fail in the end and your study timeline is already at risk before you even started. So if you approach us, the real question is not, do we need additional staff? But the real question is, can we afford to not have additional staff and to have our study on time?
I have a question on that.
Yeah.
Now, I like to work with numbers. So for each study that is extended, it's estimated that there's 21K, right? For each study, like daily cost of running a trial could be as much as 20,000 or 21,000 there. But I think I saw it somewhere.
I think the biggest numbers I've heard is if you're the problem is always if you're late to market.
Yeah.
So your patent is already running, and every day you're late to market, it's 800,000 to 2.5 million. So if you're late for months or two, it costs you millions, and you can cut these losses by maybe a little protocol deviation before you even start. So if you have home care visits in your protocol and you don't need to do an amendment 6 months later. It's not only saving time, but it's saving a lot of money on the long run.
On the long run.
Yeah.
I think this is one angle the sponsors should be looking at it. I like how you started the response. It's not about having additional resources. It's about not affording to extend your timeline by 1 day.
Yeah.
And if the sponsors can understand what that could mean in terms of numbers and cost, maybe to make a lot more, make them a lot more receptive to see the value that a company like Envisio is bringing. So do you get a lot of pushbacks from CRO? Maybe they consider you as a competition. Do you get that?
No. So we try to explain this over the last years. We will never be your CRO. So we are in our niche of nursing, of healthcare professionals, of home care support, and CROs are working on the same level as we do, and we need CROs to monitor all the work we are doing, to take track of the data, to take track of all the sites, because maybe we are not supporting all of them, maybe we are just doing 50% because the rest is running fine. And we will never become a CRO.
Yeah.
So this is a really different level on working on clinical trials. You need a different expertise, and to be honest, we don't have this expertise as a CRO to do medical writing, to do all the data
management,
storage, data management, eCRFs. We know how these things work because we work with them daily, but we don't know how to set them up.
So tell me a little bit more about how you have evolved your service from the flying study nurses to including doctors right now. Tell me a bit more, and what motivated that, or what prompted that? I'm sure it's probably a study protocol that you realize, oops, I need a doctor.
We started on a different level. So we started in 2011 with supporting trial sites. So on the trial side, we did like 10, 15 trials with one nurse that was supporting all of them. And after a while, we were approached by the sponsors, and they told us, okay, we see this site is now running like really well. But we have 25 other sites in Germany. Can you support on these sites as well? And this was the point where we went multicentric. So we had to change our perspective on how Envisio is working and how Envisio is growing, and attend to the customer. So Envisio went multicentric. We did multicentric trials just for one sponsor, all the sites in Germany. After a few years, the sponsor approached us, okay, who's doing Spain and who's doing Italy, who's doing Poland? Then we switched and went multinational. And this is always like answering to your customer, listening to your customer. And then the customer came up, okay, we have a pediatric trial in Italy. We need a doctor and a nurse. And this is the case where we start, okay, now we need to adapt again. We need to find doctors to support this trial. And we always listen to our customers, and we grew with them.
I've so much enjoyed our conversations because it has led me to understand a bit more about Envisio, the vision of the company, and how your motivation as a company has evolved over time. You're helping patients, you're making sure studies stay on time, return valuable or quality data, like we call it. I understand it. What is the value that a sponsor or a CRO would get if they work with Envisio?
So I think the biggest value is not one single area like recruitment or retention. I think we are reducing or removing huge bottlenecks in clinical trials. So we worked with trials with multiple sites that were really underperforming. Recruitment was not good. Patient visits were delayed and timelines were slipping. And we supported those sites with healthcare professionals with a lot of expertise and improved visit compliance. We improved recruitment. We stabilized the whole timeline and got these sites running again. And I think the biggest value with Invisio is just the capabilities we have in all these countries. The knowledge we gathered over 15 years of working in clinical trials and the huge network with over 680 healthcare professionals in Europe, another 1,000 in the US that are ready to
Really?
go immediately. If you need them in 6 hours or more, we will be ready. But if you approach us 2 weeks before your visit,
Most recently, there has been a lot of conversations around leveraging AI to improve efficiency in clinical operations. Is there any way your work is adopting AI or technology that you would like to share?
so of course we see this AI spike in clinical trials. We see it on all the conventions. Everybody's talking about that. We have new companies coming up daily presenting interesting things that are made with AI or are just based on AI. I think we are back to the point now in our podcast where we talk about time again. So we saw companies that are now doing protocols with AI. Normally a protocol takes about 2 months to write. And we saw live presentations of AI writing a protocol in 2 minutes. And I think this is a huge step towards saving time on clinical trials.
And people losing jobs.
No.
Someone used to write the protocol and
Yes, someone used to write the protocol. But now this person needs to adopt to AI and work with AI to write the protocol. So you still need this knowledge, but they will be a lot faster. So they won't be losing a job. They just need to learn how to prompt, to use AI to be faster. And maybe you can skip 2 protocol deviations because AI helped you to
learn
read your protocol differently.
Yeah.
And maybe see it from another side. And AI knows 200,000 protocol deviations and protocol amendments and can react to your initial offering as well.
Yep.
So it's not always about losing jobs. I think it's
Efficiency
about
too.
efficiency and adopting your job to work with AI.
Yep.
And
Great.
at Invisio, we are working with AI as well in a lot of cases. But for us, we will use it a lot in placing nurses, placing doctors, and calculating travel times, especially maybe you have a site in Paris. And in Paris, you can travel 3 hours to the south or 3 hours to the north. But if you have a visit at 2 in the morning, it might be more efficient to take this doctor to travel than the other one who might be nearer. And if you have a visit at 5 p.m. rush hour, it should be better to take the other person. And we are working off these kind of things to predict travel times, to predict visit windows, to get faster in clinical trials.
To end, I'm going to ask you one difficult question. Tell us what a bad day could look like in the life of a healthcare professional working in Invisio, supporting a really complex, difficult trial. What does a bad day look like?
We had a lot of bad days. And these bad days are not only focused on one person or one mistake. It always is a lot of mistakes that come together. So we had home care visit where there should be a dry ice delivery on time. The truck came and it's not dry ice. It's only on room temperature level. So we then need to adapt. So we had our nurse then driving with the driver to the station to get dry ice, to get everything delivered on time. So you always need to adapt. So it's not a bad day.
But it's just like an
It's
unexpected event.
It's an unexpected event and it's a new challenge. But to keep the trial running and to get the patient's data on time and get everything ready, you just need to adapt. So it's not bad days, but it's challenges that come with every trial, with every visit.
And if it was an AI or a robot that went for that visit, Dry eyes or no dry eyes, the AI is going back home. That's where you need the human in the loop.
I think it takes a lot of time until people adapt robots as nurses or doctors at their home.
So, from what I have heard so far, I'm really excited that we were able to have this conversation. I've learned a lot. To be honest, what has motivated you to get into support? Like in your beginning, you said you thought you were supporting trials, but you were supporting patients.
Yeah.
And this has kept your motivation, and you've evolved the business idea and the vision, not just from the nurse's perspective, but you also have involved doctors responding to the sponsor's request. And in the end, we have drugs coming to market. People's lives are depending on these drugs.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you staying on the vision. I appreciate you, driving this vision also very passionately and traveling. I know how much you travel to make sure you get, different sites and different countries, different regulations, different documentations you need to get put in place for the business so that you support sponsors in different parts of the world. I appreciate you. And from us here in Clinically Unscripted, thank you once again for joining the podcast. And I hope we have you one more time.
Thank you very much for your kind words. It was a wonderful experience to be on your podcast.
Thank you.
I hope I'm allowed to come again at some point.
Of course.
Maybe in the next year to talk.
Yes.
What we did this year and what kind of challenges we overcome to get clinical trials faster and better.
Yeah. Thank you very much
Thank
once
you
again. Bye-bye.